Today's episode of Vital Voices is brought to you by Oak Tree Medical Center. Are you enjoying Vital Voices? Do you find our conversations educational, engaging, and inspiring? Then like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell to keep updated on new episodes and more. Welcome to Vital Voices, the podcast where we speak with experts who are shaping the future of health and wellness one conversation at a time. Today, we're exploring the powerful link between organizational culture and mental health in the workplace. Our guest is Amad Rashad Thompson, author, certified speaker, executive coach, host of the iLead podcast, and founder of Astute Talent Management. With deep expertise in leadership and human resource development, Amad is on a mission to transform 1 million lives by helping individuals and organizations unlock their true purpose. In this episode, we dive into what a healthy workplace truly looks like, how leadership impacts mental wellness, and the practical ways organizations can create cultures where people feel seen, supported, and empowered. So whether you're a business owner, an HR professional, or a team leader, this conversation will challenge you to rethink how your workplace is affecting the minds and hearts of your team. Amad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Alexis. This is an incredible honor to be here. I'm grateful to have this conversation specifically.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation as well. Mm-hmm. Leadership and workplace environments, workplace culture is such a critical component to every individual's everyday life, right? The majority of individuals work in some sort of structured environment, right? Most people aren't working for themselves. And so because of that, you spend a lot of time at work. You spend a lot of time amongst your work colleagues, working under different leaders. And so that takes up a very large component of our lives. And how the culture is in that environment, how the culture of leadership is in that environment, then has a heavy bearing on the rest of our life, because Absolutely. We spend so much time there. What we experience there, how we feel about there, how we feel when we are there, then bleeds into how our mood is when we come home to deal with family and children and all of those other elements. So it's a very critical, in my mind, conversation for us to have, because there is a need to ensure that we are crafting and creating healthier workplace environments, healthier workplace cultures for our people. So I know that you've worked with organizations across various sectors. Why do you believe that mental health in the workplace deserves more attention today than ever before?
The world we're living in, Alexis, is starkly different than the world our parents and grandparents, even us, grew up in. And people are no longer accepting your view of their mental health as a byproduct of their success. They want you to prioritize that. Organizations that are not taking the time to blatantly state the fact that your mental health is as important, if not more, than your physical health, are losing out. Right? Individuals today are also, this is the touchy topic that I often choose where I speak about it, because the world today has moved away from, in my opinion, my humble opinion, from resilience and is now relying on a disorder, right? The more you can fit into a box of whatever is wrong with you, the more you're seen and heard and given attention. For those of us that remain resilient or choose resilience, we are sometimes typecasted as insensitive to mental health issues. What needs to happen in an organization is that there needs to be a healthy balance. You want to create a workforce on an organization that highlights and intentionally focuses on the mental well-being of an organization. When you come here, this place shouldn't be adding to the amount of stress you have. It shouldn't feel like an insurmountable task to just be the work. Right? You should also know that in this organization, we want people who will figure stuff out as well. Right? And so there needs to be a very healthy balance between how we celebrate those that are resilient and how we hold up those that need help. Right?
And that's the balancing act that exists, because you will have people of varying approaches to this. Like you said, some people are either by life's experiences, they have become more resilient. And vice versa, by life's experiences, they are challenged to manage resilience and manage their life in a day-to-day space. You know, in your experience, what are some of the most common signs that a workplace culture is negatively affecting employee mental health?
Listen, the signs are usually blaring. When you have individuals that used to be very vocal, that were once very involved and engaged, I say all of a sudden and eventually at the same time, start to retreat. In meetings, they start to say things like nothing from me, right? On the committee, they start to become less and less involved. They have less and less to offer. They become more and more busy outside of work. Oh, I have this engagement, I have that commitment. I can't give myself the way I used to. When you have people start to do the opposite of that and also act out, an individual who was once very somber, very reserved, may start to just, act out, lash out, display characteristics that are not usual or in keeping with their typical behavior. When you have individuals start to call out more, right? Start to take full advantage of their sick days. They start to schedule their sick days now, right? So there used to be just vacation and a holiday that you would expect not to see this person, but all of a sudden, every other month, there's a day or two that they can't make it into work. These things are telltale signs, not all of the signs, but telltale signs that things are changing in your organization, that people are starting to prioritize them versus your workload or your work environment. Additionally, when you start to see people speak out in anger in things like employee engagement surveys, right? Outside of just concern, but they start to lambaste a particular person or circumstance. When they start to use negative and really derogatory language or hurtful language, things like those indicate that something is not right. That the toxicity in the environment is starting to rise and people can't see themselves outside of this toxicity anymore. When you have individuals, too, Alexis, that say things like, they can't do nothing with me. They can't touch me. I've been here for this long. I've been here for that long. Or you can't mind Amad. You can't mind Alexis. I always challenge my clients, what you mean you can't mind them? And for our global audience, that means you shouldn't pay attention to him. Or don't pay her too much mind. Don't give her too much attention because that's just how she goes. Right? But that individual, just like you or I, are paid. Is expected to deliver a particular level of work. Is expected to live out these values that we so prominently placed on these posters and on our websites. But if they get to do what they want to do, and you and I can't, you're going to 100% increase the potential of me lashing out or showing off in a certain negative way. Right?
Yeah, it is. Those do sound like things that you would be able to look at and be like, there's something here that's going wrong. Something is not quite right. You mentioned, obviously, we're starting out the conversation talking from an internal component, and then some of these things are kind of, they slip in between internal and external, right? So it's like you could have burnout at work because there's too much happening in your home environment, right? Absolutely. And what might be a regular workload under normal circumstances feels like too much and overwhelming just because of what's happening home at life. And then you may have, stress that could be coming from either direction that's impacting. And then, things like disengagement, things that I know. A concept that I think has become talked about a lot more in the last few years is this concept of quiet quitting, right? So there's all of these things that exist, stress, burnout, disengagement. How do they show up differently depending on the organizational culture? So how much does what the culture of your place impact how these things then manifest?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is certainly a relative circumstance. It's very subjective. What used to be manageable to someone could today all of a sudden just feel like, wait a minute, I'm about to crash and burn, right? The pressures that organizations set, though, can influence how a person is able to navigate or not. For instance, you could be in a sales culture and everything is money, sales, targets, and you only focus on or celebrate those individuals that do extremely well. Not just be the target, we forget them. The ones that exceed, the ones that are cutthroat, the ones that are dog eat dog, those are the ones that we celebrate. And so you send a message to your other colleagues in your organization that we only focus on those that go above and beyond, right? And above and beyond is not some theory. Above and beyond is tactical and it's tangible. They can see that this person was supposed to get 10, but they got 48. And that's what we want to celebrate. But what about those that got 10? What about those that were just shy of 10? What about those that needed a bit more training or development or attention or some level of development to get to the next level? We inadvertently and very loudly tell those people, you don't matter, your efforts don't matter because we only focus on those that are killing it right now in the game, right? Versus consistently doing what needs to be done to get to the point of success. When we also intentionally and unintentionally determine that I am not successful or this person is not successful because they didn't meet your standard of success. That unfair comparison is ridiculous and it's also very damaging because if we've established the standard, then hold me to the standard, not to your expectation of my standard.
Because it's interesting, you know, like what about the person who got 15? So they
Yes.
got beyond their 10, but they didn't get the 48. How are they then left to feel? Because I've exceeded the number, but because I've not exceeded to the degree that this person has, then now it doesn't matter that I've even gotten beyond my 10.
Correct.
So it is interesting how all of that plays. I think things like this, conversations like this, have to start at the ground floor.
Absolutely.
Right? So what are the core ingredients of a healthy and psychologically safe workplace?
The core ingredients are going to be honest and transparent conversation. Irrespective of who has that voice to speak at that time,
Right.
they feel safe enough to say, you know what, hold on, I disagree.
Right.
I'm not sure that's the way we should go, or have we considered, do we think about, if you are a leader and you're listening to this conversation right now, a leader of any level, C-suite, or you just got your first position as a leader, if your team continues to say nothing in a meeting, if they continue to have no questions at all, if they continue to say nothing from me, please know that is a very clear indictment on the leadership culture in your organization. No one ever has nothing to say. No one.
That's true.
The quietest of your team members has a thought, has an idea that they would be delighted to share with you. If they felt, one, you would do something with it. Two, they would not be held, it would not be held against them. Three, they wouldn't be victimized in some way later on down the road, right? This wouldn't be office gossip after the meeting. This wouldn't be a chance for you to get me later on down the road. So the things that people look for that indicates psychological safety is an honest and transparent workplace culture. I can say what I need to say in a respectful manner and not be lambasted or thrown on the side once I've done that.
Right.
People are able to be vulnerable and innovative at the very same time.
Right.
I cannot have a clue what I'm doing, but still be excited to come up with a brand new idea tomorrow.
Right.
Right? When that vulnerability is taken to mean weakness, inefficiency, underdevelopment, inability, people, they retreat.
Yeah.
They shut down. When they are not celebrated for that vulnerability, but are lambasted for that vulnerability, they retreat. They have nothing else to say. You know what? If you know it also, then do it all.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's definitely a thing
that's
that people
real
will
life.
say.
If you're walking around as Mr. or Mrs. Leader that has all the bright ideas, all the solutions, then sir or mom, do this on your own. Watch your people retreat and then not so much quietly quit, but they just can tell you about your hip and walk off.
Yeah.
Right? In some cases.
I feel like our generation is the quietly quit generation. The generation behind us is they will walk off your job.
They will give you no notice. They will feel no way about that. I saw a gentleman, Alexis. We worked together at an organization. He's about 22, maybe 23 at most. He worked with this organization today. Went on vacation, an unapproved vacation. But I'm entitled to it, so I go on. Started a new job. While actively employed, I've said at the other job, I go on a trip. A business trip. And at the door of this airplane, as I'm disembarking, is this gentleman, fully regaled in the uniform. Hey boss, what's going on? I'm like, we've been looking for you. What's going on? Oh no, I quit. Repeat it? You don't work there. I don't work there no more. I answer that. Y'all don't foolish time moving on. And he is smiling with me as though he's telling me about my mother and a newfound lottery win.
Right.
He is in no way bothered, no way concerned. I quit that job. I'm on this job now. I'm fully regaled. Where you going next? Let me take it to your next stop. And he is as though like there's no issue with this. And so we have to be very careful and cognizant that the generation you're now working for, because they're not working for you, you're working for them, are fully prepared to just walk off and think nothing of it.
Yeah.
And they're not going to treat you anyway, They're not going to do you funny. There's no grudge. There's no hatred. This isn't serving me anymore. I'm gone.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a business owner a few weeks back, and they were talking about because they're in the service industry, and that's the space where you will naturally have a lot of younger people typically employed. And they were talking about the experiences that they were having. They had a team member who didn't show up for a week, and when they tried to reach out, they ended up talking to the parent. And the parent was like, "Oh yeah, I told them they need to stay on for a week because it was too much stress." And so, but nobody called. Nobody said the parent, neither the child.
Wow.
And so this is indeed that's real, this is real life. These are things that we are seeing out in the world, like for real. And this is not to generation bash, but it's important to understand the difference from generation to generation. Because, like I said, our generation, I feel like we will sit there. We will lump it for a while, but in the background, we're quietly preparing to exit.
Yes.
So understand that difference where if you deal with a boomer versus Gen X, Gen Z versus What is it, Generation Alpha, I think is what it is
this
now.
Alpha coming up. Gen Z is currently in the workforce. Alpha is right behind them.
Right. And so it's important to understand the differences, because then how you navigate and set up your organization culture might be different depending on the balance of who all is working within your organization, because you kind of have to navigate all, right?
You have to.
Because we still have boomers in the workforce.
Currently actively employed. Listen, you said just now that the culture might be different. If your culture is exactly the way it was whenever you started your business, whatever amount of time ago, you are losing.
Yeah.
There is no might. You are required today to serve those that you want to serve your organization. It does not matter where they are from, what they believe in, who they love. What matters most is that you are now leading for the first time in the history of mankind a 6th generation workforce. It has never happened before in the history of time.
Wow.
Here's why. The 64-year-old is as young and bright and sharp as a 34-year-old today. This is not the time of our grandparents and great-grandparents when 48 was considered like geriatric, right? You have a 21-year-old and a 61-year-old, and they are very, very competent. Competent in different ways,
right?
Tolerant of different things, and showing up in different ways as well, right? So while this 60-something-year-old, this 40-something-year-old might just stick it through because they're close to their whatever that line in the sand is for them,
right?
Whether that's retirement, whether this is lump sum, whether this is freedom, they are gonna hold. They may hold on for a little while longer. You have the young people who this is their first time on a job. And they're like, this is what this is? This is how ghetto this? I straight. I gone.
Yeah.
And there's no week's notice and 2 weeks notice.
No.
Sir, this doesn't serve me.
And
I gone.
I am gone.
All the best. Figure it out.
Wish you all the best. And your future
take it out. I gone.
Yeah.
There's no discussion. And on top of that, you have this feeling within those generations of, you're too slow. Why are you trying to outshine me? So there's a direct competition, which reduces psychological safety as well.
Right.
Because as the leader or leaders, I'm going to find myself either with who I relate to or who's bringing me the most results. Either way, I'm ostracizing somebody else.
Yeah. Because now too, what you have is it isn't necessarily the case automatically that the 60-something-year-old is leading the 40-something or the 20-something. In some instances, you have 40-year-olds that are leading in both directions.
Absolutely.
Right? They have people under their leadership who are both
20 years their junior,
20 years older, and also potentially
20 years their senior.
Right. And so that makes it quite an interesting dynamic to have to navigate, because you have to know how to lead people who may look at you like, well, he's a young pup, right? And then people look at you like, well, why you didn't use all that when you only that much older than me?
Exactly.
And so it becomes this very interesting thing to navigate, because there's so much to consider in the space of leadership, and I think that's a part of the difficulty as well. Like you said, to break it out into being a 6th generation workforce, that's a lot of different people with a lot of different experiences, a lot of different viewpoints on the world, and that becomes quite the puzzle to unpack and put together. How does leadership set the tone for organizational culture and then by extension employee well-being?
Everything rises and falls on leadership. There is any leader worth its salt is going to 100% give all the credit to when things go right to their team, and the minute anything goes wrong, accepts all responsibility. If you are the one that's doing the reverse, I'm sorry to say, go right now and just change your whole life. Change your whole mindset, because the people around you are telling you exactly what you do not need to hear. If your focus is, I win when they win, you lose. If your focus is when they lose, you lose. If it is not your priority to create an environment, to do nothing more than to focus on the environment and the culture your team is working through and working in, you have lost the race. It is not about results. It's not about productivity. It's not about the individual. It is about the environment you create and foster. I say it this way, Alexis. People are only able to do what they are allowed to do in life.
That is true.
In any circumstance. That could be your dad, your baby, your wife, your spouse, your barber, your mechanic. It could be you. You are only able to do to you what you let yourself do to yourself.
Correct.
And so if you have an organization with an overperformer, an overachiever, and exceeds expectation standard every month, but is an absolute catastrophe in your organization, if you celebrate what they did but don't correct who they are, you are causing yourself a whole lot more. And people will only ever do in any circumstance in your life what they are allowed to. And so your responsibility is to curate an experience for your organization that indicates, we see you here, We hear you here. We want you to feel like you belong here. People only want 3 things in life, Alexis: to be seen, to be heard, and to know that they're doing okay. And when they feel overlooked, when they feel ignored, when they feel underserved, when they feel like, I said this to you 40 years ago, 4 months ago, 4 weeks ago, and you did nothing with it, but when so-and-so says it, as toxic as they are, as belligerent as they are, as insensitive as they are, but as performative as they are, you celebrate them, but you denounce me, you deny me, you ridicule me, you overlook me.
Yeah.
Your job, your one job, is to create and curate the culture that's going to cause your organization to thrive. How do you do that? You ask some questions. You're married. If you ask your wife, baby, what you want for your birthday? And she says, oh, I can't stand balloons. I prefer flowers. But because you saw on TikTok one time where a woman celebrated, oh my God, you got balloons. You go and you buy the balloons in her favorite color, You still know her favorite color is purple and pink. So you get a big bouquet of balloons and she'll be so happy. She's told you very explicitly, I dislike balloons. I prefer flowers. You could have just as easily gotten the purple and pink flowers, but in your mind, balloons are bigger, they're more elaborate, whatever the case may be. And so you go and buy the balloons. And she's, for the next week and a half, just a disaster. Attitudinal, she's shut down. She may even feel hurt because this man ain't listening to me.
Right.
Now, the co-workers, the cousins, the family member sends her a small bouquet of flowers and a little mug. But she have that on her WhatsApp status. She puts it on her Facebook status. She put it on her Instagram. And you're like, wait a minute, Mrs. Balloons cost me $150. Just a little cup of flowers ain't cost you nothing.
Right.
But your team members are telling you loud and clear what they want, how they want it. You've done the wrong thing by giving them what you thought they needed or what you thought they wanted. And so you create an environment where they feel doubly overlooked, doubly unheard, doubly unseen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Going back to the accountability part of it, I feel like what we're seeing more and more nowadays is a lack of accountability at the leadership level, and then that trickles down through the organization.
Absolutely.
Because if my leader is not being accountable and every time something goes wrong, it's my fault, it then becomes almost easier and almost by default, unless you're actively practicing leadership, your default is then going to be to pass the buck down. Yes. And so we see a lot of that's happening in the space. And then I think it's important to recognize, and as I moved from being quote unquote line staff to a manager, then to a director, one of the things that my wife pointed out to me when I moved into a director position was, your work is going to become less about your work and more about the management of your people.
Absolutely. Who do the work?
Right? And for some people, if you are like a worker, right, your thing is, I like to get the job done. I'm task oriented, because that's a whole other kettle of fish. This idea of elevating people who are very good at accomplishing tasks into positions of leadership, but then not necessarily cultivating leadership within them, right? Because it's as much their job to figure out how to be a leader, but then if you're leading them, it's as much your job to build them up into that, into a proper leader.
Absolutely.
But I think that's also an important thing to note, is that as you move up the hierarchical chain in any organization structure, your role becomes less and less about, can I get the physical task done of X, and more, how do I manage the people that I am leading in order to, they're getting the X done, but how am I managing them, their interactions with each other, their interactions with me, their interactions with other team members. And I think maybe that's something that gets missed in translation, is just how much the work goes from the work to the people.
Absolutely. One of the things I want to share about that is I have this model, the ABCs of accountability, right? The first thing is you have to aim. Then you have to not blame. You have to claim.
Okay.
Right? The aim is to focus. What am I focused on right now? What has gone wrong? What is the actual issue? Not the people involved with the issue. Because irrespective of the people, the circumstance is there and will likely repeat itself if your focus is on Amad and Alexis that were involved in the issue.
Right.
Your first point of contact is the actual issue itself. What transpired today?
Right.
What went wrong? What took place? What happened? Direct focus, radical laser focus on that thing, right? Then, you, rather than trying your best to blame someone for that thing, avoid that altogether. Just avoid the blaming game 100%.
Yeah.
Move on to claiming responsibility. For whatever aspect of that, you had a hand in playing. Because even if you weren't directly involved with it, you are the leader, you are the overseer of that thing. What environment was not created? What circumstance was not explained? What expectation was not clearly laid out. What did you not do to make this thing more successful?
Right.
So first aim, focus directly on the issue, the circumstance at hand. Remove all people or your thought about those people in the moment. Remove the opportunity for blame. Do not start the conversation with who's at fault here, whose problem is this? No, sir. End that blame game right now. Because all you're doing is ostracizing your people.
Right.
You're causing to create more and more silos. You're removing the barriers of psychological safety. You're saying to people, you know what? Whoever's at fault for this is going to have hell to pay.
Right.
So you know what I sought to do? I sought to deny. I sought to disengage. I sought to pull away. Because the last time somebody raised hand and said that was my fault, all hell broke loose.
Right.
Then you move on to claiming. Here's what I'm going to do. I have decided I'm going to reevaluate my role in this thing that played out, whether you are involved in it or not. Because as the leader, you are involved. There's no way around it. Is it the environment? Is it the process? Is it a lack of clarity? Is it a lack of direction? Is it that another leader in the organization didn't take full responsibility? What's going on here? So aim, don't blame, and then claim. Right? But when you talk about this culture of people moving from I'm a great cashier, I'm a great doer of X. So now you must be a great leader of X doers as well. Absolutely not. Here's what we don't do, Alexis. We don't ask people what they want.
Right.
You don't say to them, hey, Jenny, you're really, really great at answering the phone. Would you want to be the leader of all the people who answers the phone? She might say, you know what? Absolutely not. I see what else got to go through these people. I see these coworkers every day. I wish not to lead them.
Right.
Do I want to be a leader? Maybe, maybe not. But don't give people what they didn't ask for.
Right. And I think what I'm going to answer you with is going to lead into our next question.
Sure.
People sometimes don't actually know what they want or what they need or what they might be good at. So sometimes you have somebody who may be fumbling with getting X done, but their ability to read and navigate people would make them a substantial leader of the people who are doing X. A lot of times you have people who can do X, but their people skills in S, especially if it's a technical field that they're in, right? So that is an interesting thing to navigate, but that brings me to my next question. You know, because you're a behavioral analyst, how do behavioral assessments, because behavioral assessments end up leading into a lot of things about how people are, what their values are, what they're interested in. But how do those assessments help leaders understand themselves and then also team dynamics and then mental health risk before they escalate?
Yes, that's such a great question. So my assessments that I provide for organizations and leaders is the Maxwell DISC Personality Indicator Report. People have heard about DISC all over the time for years and years and years. But the Maxwell DISC Personality Indicator is so accurate, it is frightening. And it aptly captures you at every stage of your development.
Right.
Let me give an example. One of my best friends is, when we first did his DISC assessment, he was a manager of operations. He was unmarried, had no children, had no mortgage. About a year and a half later, he went from manager to director to VP in about a year and a half. No, manager to director, sorry. In about a year and a half, 2 year span. Found his wife, wasn't yet married, but inherited a stepchild. All in the space of about a year and a half, 2 years. We did his DISC assessment again, 100%, like a complete 180. His focus shifted on from what I need as a man, as a person, to wait a minute. I'm now leading an entire division. I'm now leading an entire human being and her child. Right? We didn't birth this child together, but this child is as much mine, or will be as much mine, when we say I do.
Right.
His entire focus had shifted. Literally the entire thing. But the report in both instances, I talk about like your Grammy call you, is as though your grandmother calls me and says, hey, here's all you need to know about Alexis. From birth to now. And when you read it, you're like, wait a minute. It's like, did you talk to everybody that I know? It is so weirdly, I can't find a better word. It is uncanny how accurate this report is.
Right.
But what I tell my leaders all the time is that this report is not some badge of honor or some box you get to stand in. It is a point of awareness. I now know this about why I couldn't reach Mary and why I could always connect with Bob. Right? Because you and Bob may have shared similar mindsets or concepts around, or thought processes around a certain thing. Mary was starkly different than you. In some cases, opposites will attract, in other cases, opposites will repel.
Right.
But this is a tool to help you to understand more about who you are as an individual. What frustrates you? And it's we focus on three aspects of the one person.
Right.
The first is what we call the mirror self. The way you absolutely see yourself. The way you truly see Alexis to his core. Then there is the mask. The mask is the Alexis you believe I expect you to show up as. Right? And then there is the Alexis that no matter what you believe or what I believe will always show up. That Alexis is the true Alexis. The one when if you wake up in the middle of the night, Alexis, and you groggy, you use the restroom, and you buck your pinky toe, Alexis, to the bedpost. That's the true Alexis. Right. It comes up in that third graph, right? It's a scientific assessment of who you are based on the circumstances you find yourself in.
Right.
It is an indication, not a prediction, right? And so people assume that because it's so uncannily accurate, this is who I am. This is not who you are. This is who you can be in these different circumstances.
Right.
And so when organizations perform this assessment on would-be hires, right, on persons they want to promote, in these circumstances, here's how Amad, Alexis, Bob, Susan may show up.
Right.
A more evolved thinker might evaluate the circumstance and say, you know what, rather than cursing and carrying on because I bucked my toe, there's my wife asleep in the bed, our baby's in the next room, I'm going to disrupt the peace, let me just woosah instead. Right? And so it's an indication of behavior, not necessarily a predictor of behavior.
Right.
Additionally, though, it gives you context into how to communicate with people who are not like you. So you may be direct and straight to the point, but you'll have somebody on your team who is very, very, they are engagement hoarders, if you will. They got to spend the first 40 minutes of the workday talking to everybody at everybody's cubicle, talking about the party last weekend and the show last night, and they got to make tea 14 times before the workday begins. They are running you dead hot.
Right.
They're frustrating you beyond your wildest imagination. They don't follow up, but they do follow through. They provide results, but they can forget, right? And so for a direct person, a person who's going to drive naturally and lead naturally, this is a complete opposite. They're going to buck heads.
Yeah, you are.
But now the person who realizes, oh, she actually needs this engagement time. He needs to go out and flutter about the place and flip around all day. He needs that moment in time. You know what? Let me build it into his day.
Right.
Let me say to him, hey, you in charge of so and so.
Right.
Let me give him or her that ability to be who they naturally are, so they feel seen, heard, and that they're doing okay. But you still get to say to them, listen, but by focus, I still need so and so. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I was working somewhere where they did the assessment on all of the leaders. And what they found at the conclusion of the process was they had an overwhelming number of D's and S's, right?
Okay.
There were 1 or 2 C's. There was no I. And what was interesting was there was someone who was in the organization previously who was an I. And I remember coming out of that meeting and being like, this is the difference in the organization. We had someone, and for people who don't know, D is dominance, I is influence, S is steadiness, C is conscientiousness.
Absolutely.
So just hearing the words alone, if you have a bunch of D's and a bunch of S's, and you have no one with influence, no one who can massage the egos, who can make you feel heard and take that back up to a higher level of leadership and get things to change. If you don't have that, that is a very core component that's missing. And like I said, I remember walking out of that meeting and kind of getting an understanding, like, this is the core difference in how this organization used to be and how it is right now.
And where it's going to go.
It's
a clear predictor, because if it goes beyond, Alexis, the descriptors of the letters, it goes about what am I innately programmed to focus on.
Correct.
Right? My focus as a D is to drive, to direct, to get this thing done. My focus as an I is to engage, to influence, to inspire, to people lead you right down to the ground. Right? My focus will always be, what about our team members and so and so? What about the crew? What about the and people see that as annoying, right? If I'm an S, I'm that person that's going to make sure all is well. Yeah. I'm steady. My hand is never going to be shaken. I'm the person who comes to in crisis. Right. Because I'm not aloof, but I'm also not panicking all over the place. And then that C, well, conscientious is also very compliant. 1 + 1 must be 2. And so if we have a bunch of D's, a bunch of S's, a few C's, and no I's, no one is thinking automatically or innately, what about our team?
Right. And so what it felt like in the moment, and what it continued to feel like, was the organization has lost its heart.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what the experience was. And you see the employee assessments go down. You see even, because obviously that then now starts to bleed out into your clientele. You see your client assessments are going down. And it became a very interesting thing because it all, in my mind, right? I'm not a behavioral analyst.
Yes.
This is me trying to apply what I see as common sense and logic.
Yes.
But my common sense and logic said, we're missing this, and this is the issue.
Yes.
Because now there's no heart. So it is interesting, even when you think about that, to think about the balance of the types of people you have in your leadership structure, because there's a reason why there are multiple types, and you probably need to have at least a couple of all in order to have something that is healthy and is considering all angles of the organization and of what leadership looks like. So what are some practical actions leaders or HR teams can take to start building a more supportive environment for their staff as it pertains to maintaining their mental health in particular?
This may sound very, very simple, but it is very simple. Listen. The first thing you have to do is listen. So many organizations are going at lightning speed to produce, to create, to demonstrate. But what are your people saying and what are they no longer saying? Listen to your team members. If you are prepared to do nothing with the information, please don't collect it. Don't ask for my business if you don't want to do something with it. We were in a session the other day, and I said to that audience, Alexis, information without implementation is intellectual constipation. And when you decide to do all this work, all this campaigning to get me to fill out your survey, but for the 14th year in a row, you've done absolutely nothing with my information, please know that I'm no longer going to fill that out. And if I do fill it out, it is 100% false. Because we've become so accustomed to the participation rates. 98% participation. But what is the engagement score? 44%, 28%, 38%. Because people are answering you, but they're not engaged with this process. Right? The first thing you want to do to create, the practical thing you want to do is to listen. But you put people in a position to hear who want to. So let's say, for instance, you have your CEOs. 9 times out of 10. No disrespect to you, Mr. CEO, Mr. CEO. You weren't interested. And your pretense or your pretending to be interested is very, very easy to tell. So if you don't want to go, don't go. Don't force yourself to be where you don't want to be, because that tells everywhere you go. But send the leader on your team who is so interested in what people have to say, but they can still take that information and now make it what you can receive. You want to see this data in numbers? No problem. We interviewed 14 people. 12 of them said they hate the coffee that we have in this building. 14 of them said they hate where we have the park. 12 of them said we don't like the new schedule that you came up with for the shift and whatever it is. Take that data numerically present it to your leader so they can get what they want. If they want a touchy-feely, give them a touchy-feely. But send the person who wants to hear so that their focus is going to be what do you have to say. Send the people in your organization who you can stand. Hear from them first. They're your biggest success, because they're still there. For whatever reason, whether it's to pay that mortgage, whether it's because they can't go nowhere else and have foolishness days too, whether it's because they feel like there's still more, but I just don't know how to get it from you. There's a reason they are there, and people listen to them. They're your more influential team members anyway. So get them on the right side of your conversation. Let them tell you exactly what is wrong with what's wrong, and then say to them, okay, here's what we're going to do with that information. You do not have to fix every problem they come up with. That is impossible. But you do need to acknowledge and then respond to what it is that they just said. Tell them, you ask for more Folders coffee. Listen, man, we got Folders coffee by the Dre Lord in the so or y'all, right now the situation we find ourselves in, we can't go to Folders, we got to go to Maxwell house. Man, that's what we did do is we got some different creamer. Right? We got all the different flavors,
some different sweetener options.
Come on, right? So I couldn't do A, but I was able to do B, C, and Q. Is that what we can decide on right now?
And what it might give is you're showing an interest in actually trying to listen and make change. It reminds me of I was somewhere else where we had done this kind of a process of employee assessments of the workplace and things like that. We went through it, all the data in the world collected, and nothing came of it. And the data that was collected was very damning. There was 90% frustrated with this, 80% frustrated with that. And I remember after I had left, I had touched base with somebody who I was friends with who was still there. And it's like, we did another one of those things. And I'm like, and so the explanation was, it's pretty much the same thing it was last time. Everybody's frustrated. Everybody's still upset. Everybody still has all these different challenges. And and it's been 6 months since we've done that, and once again, nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
And what's crazy is if you're not interested in actually doing anything with the information, you're actually wasting company resources, time, money, all of that to take this on when you have no interest in doing anything. So like you said at the start, if you're not going to be interested in actually hearing and doing something about it, don't ask. Because I'd rather sit and just assume you don't care than go through that process and have it confirmed that you don't care.
Exactly.
Because the assumption sometimes is still, I can still manage the assumption versus the definitive, oh, I know you don't care.
Because the assumption lands to the point that they may care too.
Right.
Right? Like, I could assume they don't, but I could also assume every now and again they do.
Right.
But when you go through this whole big, long, drawn-out process and do absolutely nothing with what these employees have given you, you 100% very clearly say to them, forget your mission, forget your vision, forget your core values. We don't care about you. Come so we can just keep robbing you of your time and freedom and pay you a couple dollars every week instead.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about alignment of like values and purpose a little bit earlier. How important is like that purpose alignment, employee recognition, elements like that in maintaining a healthy, a mentally healthy workplace?
Yeah. Listen, it's so important, Alexis, that organizations have now come up with purpose statements and purposes versus vision and mission. Because the generations that we are seeing today, even those that are our parents' age, Alexis, are still now more than ever concerned and aware of why are we doing this?
Yes.
Right? They still want to feel that they are a part of something bigger than just this job. Now, there are some jobs that are going to be purposeless for history, for time.
Yeah.
Like you could be the pump attendant, and this is not to belittle anybody's job, but he or she may not find purpose in that work, But let me tell you how I know that's also not the truth. I was at a gas station the other day, and a gentleman, I've never received such incredible service at a gas station in my life. This guy was spectacular.
Okay.
So much so that I went to an ATM machine, came back, and gave him, this is on Gladstone Road.
Right.
I went to an ATM machine on Harbor Bay.
Oh, wow.
Because I was so trying to find one to give him this money. I went all the way to Harbor Bay. For those that are not in the Bahamas, not far. It ain't close.
Yeah.
Right? Just to give you context.
Yeah, like it ain't nothing far here, but not far.
Like, you know what I mean? And you're dealing with traffic and all this. And I came back. He had left. He already finished his shift.
Oh, wow.
And I went inside to the store lady and I said, Mom, I'm looking for John, but I didn't get his name. She's like, I know who you mean. You mean so and so. I'm like, describe him. She's like, he's tall, he's slim, he have a full beard. I'm like, yes. She was like, we've been hearing about him all week. What can I do?
Right.
I'm like, I have something for him. Can I trust you to leave it with you? She's like, absolutely. See those envelopes over there? Those are his as well. Like,
oh, wow.
He is taking this thing to a different level.
Right.
The company may not have a purpose to know, but in his mind, I do.
Yeah.
I've come to this gas station today to brighten somebody's day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came for gas, but even with way more than that.
Right.
You know? And people are concerned, Alexis. They are thoughtful about what does this work amount to.
Yeah.
Right? And so purpose and values are what people first go to your website to find out about. What do you value in your organization?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about every day? What does this work amount to in the grand scheme of things? And organizations that are not, and again, don't take this to mean that, okay, we must go create a purpose statement now so we can be ahead of the game.
Right.
No. Why are you actually alive? Why do you want to do this work? What does this work amount to? What does this contribute to? Who do you want that has purpose aligned with yours? Right? Just because I'm a great performer doesn't mean I'm aligned with what you believe in.
Right.
And if our values don't coexist, if they don't align, I'm not going to serve you well.
Yeah.
Eventually, this performance is going to do you funny, and eventually, you know what? This money ain't going to be enough.
Right.
Because your focus is too much purpose and things, and my focus is money. And if the opposite is true, your focus is money, but my focus is purpose, we're not going to be aligned. We're not going to get the best out of one another.
No.
You know?
Diving a little bit deeper into that, though, you know, how does helping, because sometimes people don't even necessarily, they've not thought deeply enough about
their own purpose.
So how important is it for people or to help people connect to their purpose, and how does that improve not just their personal fulfillment but organizational health?
Yeah, I have a client, Alexis. She has been an educator for 14 years, and she is at a point where being the thought of a school campus, like physically makes her ill.
Oh wow!
Like it shows up in physical manifestation.
Right.
Her pressure is elevated or low. Her she's experiencing like breakouts and like hair loss.
Wow.
Because of the way she feels about what she's doing. She's riddled with guilt because I love these human beings that get the privilege and honor to serve as their teacher. But this system, this platform, the way we do this is frustrating me. She wants to move out into a different industry. We spent consistent 4 weeks together, and the person I met on our week 1 and the person I released after week 4 is a completely different human being. Simply because she's now fully aware of what she no longer will tolerate and what she's going after. You were created with purpose inside of you. For I know the plans that I have for you. I want you to be prosperous. I want you to live this life so full and die so empty that when you return to me being God, the father of our nation, the father of our life, when you go back to him, he's like, look at my daughter, look at my son, raggy right down to the, just tattered and worn. Because he and she has expended all that I've given them to do. When you do things because you have to, not because you want to, Alexis, your life shows up in that particular way. When you do things because they are comfortable, when you do things because they are easy to do or because you won't bother, things show up differently. But when people are alive on purpose, when they are doing things that they feel purpose to do, their life shows up differently.
Yeah, that's a serious thing, because our parents, when they entered the workforce, were not thinking about purpose, right? I
have an obligation. I got these children to feed, there's mortgage to pay, I got the school fee to pay. Right. But they're not thinking about, why am I doing? Even if the purpose was you and me, even if the purpose was the child, Right. The fact is they did what they did out of obligation to that child.
Yes.
Not to serve the purpose of being a parent.
Yes.
Or being whatever they did for a living. You know what I mean? My grandmother is a baker and a hairstylist. She's 89 years old. She'll be 90 this year, God spare her life. And to her, the reason she bakes is because she knows that food is a universal love language.
Yes.
No matter what you are, who you are, where you're from, food and its unifying abilities makes people better. Yeah. So in her mind, I am feeding people because it makes them happier. It brings out a nicer version of them. It brings them more of their humanity. I am doing your hair, mom, because it makes you feel prettier. Yeah. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel like more of yourself or more alive with who God called you to be. So while she was making money doing people hair and baking cake, the fact is I was serving the purpose of making you a better, lighter, prettier, whatever version of yourself that you couldn't always see on your own. It is so innately ingrained in all she does to this day. Like, I'm making some rolls about a week ago, some more cross buns. And she called me the minute I left her house. You taste them yet? Not yet, grandma. I get home. I get taste when I get home. Yeah. She calls me, how were they? Did they meet your expectations? She's 89. She was big when she was 9 years old. 80 years, Alexis.
That's crazy.
She is doing this. She can do this with her eyes closed and her hands cut off from her body. But she wants to know, did they meet your expectations? When you are connected to a thing, Alexis, you're concerned about it. Yeah. You want to know its impact on people's lives around you. She's already received payment for the hot cross buns, She could care less. But your question to me is, her grandson, who she know, if they was bad, Grammy, they was good. It don't matter. Right. They were really, really good, mind you. But she wants to know, she's concerned, Alexis, about the impact of that item that she baked and I paid for. Yeah. A transaction, Yeah. But in her mind, this is purpose being lived out.
You want to know. But yeah, that it gives it such a deeper meaning. And I think so much of the workplace environment has been transactional. I'm here to do this, to get my pay, to go home. And to a degree that there are elements, those are elements of it. But finding purpose in it is how you, I imagine, is a part of what builds joy about coming into work every day. And that then makes the overall experience, if everyone's coming with a purpose in mind and the purposes are aligned, what you should have is a much healthier workplace. And I've been intentional, and as we've navigated this conversation, to not get into too much of the toxic, because we see, we hear, we know that there are a number of places that are this toxic workplace culture that it's almost commonplace now, right? So it's more about how do we help people to make those environments better and not just focus, because what you focus on, you continue to do. Absolutely. So if all you think about is a negative, it's going to continue to be negative. So it's more about how do we empower people, encourage them, and have a conversation that moves them towards positive change, more so than just hampering or harping on the negativity that exists. This is a great conversation, and we are rapidly running out of time. Yes. I do have a couple of quick questions I did want to get through, though. Looking at the future, because like you said, we're in a space where we're looking at a workforce that contains 6 different generations. What is the future of workplace culture, HR, as it pertains to mental health, and just creating a more conducive environment for a healthy mental workforce, or mentally healthy workforce? What does that look like? What trends are you seeing globally? How are people trying to make workplace culture better?
To answer that question as quickly but also succinctly as possible, diversify what creates mental health. Mental health, I believe we've watered down to just mindfulness and like meditation. but you want to focus on the activities and the programs that create mental well-being. And that is going to be different for all the people in the organization. Some people want the freedom to be autonomous and innovative.
Right.
Some people want to know that their finances are secure. They want to know that there's ability to, when they move on from this job, whether they resign, retire, or terminate it, there's financial ability and financial well-being. Some people want to be able to go to a happy hour on a Friday afternoon, right? Some people want to have to come to the office and smell coffee brewing in the morning. Like, focus on what specific activities, programs, behaviors will result in mental well-being. Don't focus on mental health. Mental health comes about when people feel mentally, physically, psychologically safe. And so the activities that you do should create a way for mental health to be the priority, but to also be the normal experience in your organization. So that means your conversations around results. That means the way you pitch and pipeline, the way you hire and terminate, the way you reprimand, the way you correct, the way you celebrate, all of these, the way you mourn, all of these things create an environment where people say, you know what, even though I'm going through all of this rubbish at work, at home, at school, or whatever, when I get to my office, I feel like I'm in a sanctuary.
Peaceful place.
Think about it this way. Your job as a leader is to remove worry and to increase delight. If you remove worry, people are worryless. If they want worry, they are going to be freer to perform. If they are delighted means, I didn't expect to see donuts this morning. That don't mean buy donuts every day because donuts don't work. I have a theory. Morale is fleeing. Momentum is freeing. The pizza party, the donut every morning, the coffee every week. Listen, man. When they done burp and use the bathroom, that's done. What do they come to every single day? What is their reality every day? Planes don't need hope and good prayers to take off. They need momentum. They need a runway, a good performing runway to take off and get to their destination safely. Your organization needs momentum, not morale. Morale is a trick. It is a trap. Do not fall for it. You need momentum. Momentum gives you more of that thing that's desired. Right? So focus on surprising and delighting your team members. Let them feel like, wait a minute, today was just excellent. Study what brings success. What about today was so good? Don't let it be happenstance. Don't let it be by the way, right? So remove worry, increase delight. Focus on momentum, not morale. And then additionally, trace the things that are successful today, not the people that are successful. What made today feel delightful? What made today feel less worrisome? Then, once you get that down, not necessarily to a science, when you understand more about, okay, the environment that was the day when so-and-so was off. Perhaps so-and-so is the reason, not necessarily the reason, but a contributing factor to why people feel like they're on pins and needles when they show up. Why people shut down when they show up. Why people walk away when they're coming toward them. Why people pretend to be on the phone when you come into the room and they all of a sudden have an emergency when you arrive. Perhaps. Not definitively, but perhaps this may be a part of the ingredient of failure versus success.
I do have one important question for you. What advice would you give for an employee who may feel unsupported or unseen in their current workplace culture?
An employee? Please leave. I'm so sorry. You do not get the right.
I agree with you, by the way.
To mismanage your life because what you believe is more important. I am a believer of God. God is my provider. Okay, Alexis? And last July, God told me to quit my job. And I was like, we just signed this mortgage deal, sir. Like the paper, like it ain't even that filing cabinet yet. It's still on the loan officer desk. I'm sure like amongst other stuff. You mean like quit or like plan to quit in like 5 years? Like, do the human thing and this like elongate this or like today quit? And he didn't answer me. You do not get the right to mismanage the life God has given you to live. One, they don't get the right to underserve you. They do not get the right in the name of bills and obligations and children and family and stuff to live the worst life you can possibly live. Now, I am a man of faith and so I trust God at His word. One, you need to get to know God and ask God what to do because perhaps this wilderness period is necessary for your flourishing period. Don't quit if you're not supposed to quit. Because I can't afford you, I can't take care of you. But I'm saying to you, hear from Him what needs to be done. What is the direction I should take, Lord? Should I withstand this? And if I'm to withstand it, please give me the mindset, the posture to really let this thing serve me and I serve it. Right? additionally, if I'm supposed to leave, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be as I'm leaving?
Yeah.
Mind your mouth. As you said just now, what you say, you will see. What you focus on, you will start to see. So what you say, you see, and then you see what you said. So if you never get the job, because you always saying you never get a job. If he always doing bad things to you, always saying he's doing bad things to you, you've created an environment that
cycle.
It's literally a cycle. You saw it first in your mind. You said it either in life or in death, and then you see what you spoke life or death into.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
But for the person who is right now struggling with the realities of a toxic environment, a derogatory environment, a place where you're not seen, felt, heard, you don't feel like you belong, evaluate also what you are doing when you get there. I am a radical proponent of personal responsibility and personal accountability, Alexis. You don't get the right to make excuses.
Right.
You get the right to make evaluations. Evaluate how you show up every single day. Are you worth what you think you're worth? Do you bring what you say you're worth every day? Stop allowing yourself to be diminished, to be watered down to a version of you that you don't even recognize anymore. There's so much that I've said, and so much for you to unpack, but 3 things. First of all, talk to God. And don't matter if you didn't talk to him in months and years and stuff. He don't care. We make that about us, not about him. He just wants you to come back home to him. Ask him what to do. He will provide the clarity you're looking for. It will come both suddenly and eventually at the same time. Second thing is, evaluate who you are and how you show up every day to that people's job. If this no longer serves you, why are you continuing to serve it?
Yeah.
Third thing, have you really done all you can to be the best you can? If you have, if you are, then perhaps it is time to move on. When people show you who they are, believe that. If this organization gives you more than one instance that this is not what they are caring about, please believe them. Take your efforts elsewhere. Last thing I would say about that, perhaps this is your time to move on to your own thing. You are listening to 2 voices that have done exactly that. Decided, whether by instruction or by intention, to move into the abyss of unknowingness.
It's so funny because when I first got the nudge from God to leave was around the same time. It was June, July of last year. And I was like, Vagrant.
Like, what you mean?
What you mean? And the thing is like, I kind of always knew that going out onto my own was a thing that was going to happen. But in my mind, it's like, you done made, your capital investment and you done all of this. And it's like, you perfectly set up to go and start this thing with no risk involved. And God is like,
that's not how it works.
The time is now. So by September, we still do the human thing. So it took me until September to actually put in, my resignation. But it was the same kind of process. And you never know what's on the other side.
You never know. And I can promise you, if you are led to it, I can feel him right now. If you are led to it by him, the other side is unimaginable. You will never be able to do what he is going to do for you. That job will never be able to produce it. The thoughts in your mind, the limiting thoughts in your mind that tell you, don't leave a good job, don't leave your so-and-so. Darling, sir, mom, dog, cat. The thing on the other side is so much better than you could ever imagine. It is just as fearful, just as uncertain. But you got to be prepared to just figure out that you don't have to figure it all out. He will lead you if he's called you to that decision. You both heard us say we were prompted, we were instructed to move. I didn't just decide, I quit my job because I'm tired of this. No. I used to do that, my job. I used to do that too. If I realized this wasn't going to serve me, you know what? I'm gone. I will do the right thing. I will provide the notice. I will do all the stuff. Help the organization as long as I can help them. But I'm not staying where I'm not going to be served. That's just not going to happen. But we allow these children, these circumstances, these bills, these spouses to limit our potential. Do not. Do not. To have potential with no purpose is perilous. You could be so capable, so smart, so intelligent, but you don't even know why you're doing what you're doing. That is a dangerous road to walk down. You were created, literally created, to give God glory through your purpose being unleashed. That is why he sent you here. He wants to be so proud of all that you've done with what he's given you that it blows his mind even. So potential is nothing if it's not purpose, and potential without purpose is definitely going to be very, very perilous for you. So please do what God called you to do. Ask him what that thing is. If you have no idea what that is, don't feel no way. Ask him for clarity on that thing and he will reveal that to you in time. Perhaps this is your moment. This one conversation could be exactly the thing that you've been running from or running toward. Don't deny the feeling. Don't deny the confirmation or the revelation of this conversation. Please run toward that.
Awesome.
It's going to be life-saving, I can guarantee you.
Awesome. This has been an amazing conversation. How can our listeners connect with you or your team to learn more about Astute Talent Management, what you're offering? How do they get in contact with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. It's my happy place. My name is Amad Rashad Thompson on LinkedIn. Connect with me there. Our email address is info@mytalentmatters.com because it does. So that's info at mytalentmatters.com. You can email us. My number is 4680192. I'm available to you. I'm going to be accessible to you, but I'm available. And so if you reach out and you don't get a response immediately, I'm doing something on purpose. I'll be back to you as soon as I can. But you can find us across all socials at the same handle, Amad Rashad Thompson. And I'm happy to connect with you to help you to unleash that thing that is going to be connecting you to what God called you to be and who He called you to serve in this lifetime.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today.
Thank you. A pleasure.
All right. A healthy workplace is more than just policies. It's a culture, a mindset, and a commitment to people. Thank you to our guest today, Amad Rashad Thompson, for sharing his insights, his faith-driven approach to leadership, and the tools we can all use to create mentally safe and purpose-filled work environments. If you found today's conversation meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who leads or is being led. To learn more about Amad's work, you can visit Astute Talent Management or follow him on social media at the channels that he's mentioned for more resources and encouragement. Until next time, this is Vital Voices, amplifying the conversations that matter. Are you enjoying Vital Voices? Do you find our conversations educational, engaging, and inspiring? Then like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell to keep updated on new episodes and more. We'd like to give a special thank you to today's sponsor, Oak Tree Medical Center.